All right, Rabbi, say good morning. Good morning. We are beginning today. Well, we're continuing today in Paragraph of chapter 26 in Mesillas Yesharim. We actually stopped a few minutes, or I should say a little bit before our the end of yesterday's chilek. So we left off. Excuse me. Remember again in this chapter titled Midas HaKidusha, what Ramchal introduced us to is a very interesting idea, namely that when it comes to the acquisition of Kedusha, it is a synergistic partnership between man and God. Ultimately, again, man does his part in trying to become Kadosh, but with the recognition that because of his physicality, there is going to be a ceiling. There's going to be a limit to what man can accomplish on his own. But the beauty of this partnership is where man's efforts end, is where HaKadosh Baruch Hu's intervention begins, and the Ribono Shel Olam blesses man's effort with incredible success, and man becomes Kadosh. And that's why the Ramchal writes over here, Kimasha Teva Monea Mimenu, that which nature prevents from me, or precludes me from, which means over here, the fact that I'm a physical, material being. So that which holds me back a little bit from Kedusha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help me and give me assistance. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not withhold good from those who walk with him with simplicity, with completion and simplicity. A person asks for himself a little bit. So a person asks for himself a little bit. In other words, a person puts in some level of hishtadlus. Mikachim also harbe. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will sanctify him greatly. Good. So we'll say, so this is the premise that Ramchal is advancing, namely that Kedusha, again, a person has to put in his efforts, but with a recognition that my ability to affect Kedusha on my own is limited. Why is it limited? Just because of my physical side. Remember again, Kedusha, which is really this process or this quest for complete holiness, right? For self-actualization in one's holiness is by definition going to be capped because I am a physical being. But that's okay, as long as I put in my effort, right? As long as I put in my avoda, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will confer upon me this additional kedusha. As we've spoken about we spoke about it last week, and Moshe actually pointed out to me, we spoke about it earlier as well by Meister Behema, this idea that there's acquired kedusha and conferred kedusha. In this case over here, interestingly enough, normally, when we speak about these two levels of holiness, often the order first goes on conferred, and then you go to acquired. Here, the order is a little bit opposite. Here, the idea is first you focus on your acquired Kedusha, that which you have to do, and then ultimately, after you have your acquired Kedusha through your Hishtadlus, then there's the conferred Kedusha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes ahead and gives to me. Ramchal goes on, V'hinei, ha'isha miskadesh bekedushas boro, afilu masav hagashim chozon lios inyane Kedusha mamash. Now, we'll say, now, then something amazing happens. So this is really incredible. So on one hand, what we've been saying up until now is like this, that the reason why I cannot become kadosh on my own is why? Because of the tzad chamri, literally because of my material, physical side. That prevents me from complete spiritual self-actualization on my own. That's just the reality. So what ends up happening? So Ramchal says what ends up happening is therefore that I do my part, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes ahead and does his part. HaKadosh Baruch Hu confers Kedusha upon me. But then something amazing happens. When Hashem confers Kedusha upon me, suddenly what occurs? My physicality becomes endowed with holiness as well. So do you see the great, I don't want to use the word irony here, but how fascinating this is. So what's the one thing that prevents me from complete Kedusha actualization? What's the one thing that prevents me? My physicality, my chumrios, right? And that's why I need Hashem's help. But once Hashem goes ahead and confers Kedusha upon me, that allows even my physicality to transform into holiness. It's absolutely incredible and beautiful. And he gives the simanach. What's the sign that this can in fact occur? Achilas kodshim shi'atzma mitzvahs aseh. I will say the example that physicality can become holy. I will say what's the example of it is the consumption of kodshim, the consumption of karbanos. I will say now the consumption of karbanos is a positive mitzvah. Va'amru zichron l'bracha kohanim ochlim ubaylim miskafrim. When it comes to karbanos, what happens? When you eat karbanos, so ultimately, again, the kohanim eat it, and the owner of the karban is atoned, right? Is cleansed, is atoned. And I will say, now if you think about this, this is incredible. If you think about the most physical act there is, what's the most physical act there is? Eating, right? Because the truth is, every living organism has to do it in some way in order to go out and survive. So, for example, animals eat, man eats. So, eating is one of the most elementary physical things. So, one would have thought that if there's one act that can't really be endowed with the level of kedusha, it's eating. But yet, amazingly enough, eating is often the very source of spiritual purity. A person brings a carbon. What happens? I will say it's true on a technical level, right? What do you need for the carbon? What do you need? Zrika, right? But on a deeper level, the Gemara points out over here that part of the atonement is effected through the consumption of the kohanim. So the kohanim eat, and the owners become atoned, or the owners are atoned for. So what do you see from here? You see from here that even an act of eating, right, which is so physical, which is something that even animals do, ultimately could be elevated to an act of holiness. It's such an incredible idea. I will say, what he's trying to show is this is the power of Kedusha. Now, by the way, what type of eating affects atonement? What type of eating? Eating in the Beis HaMikdash. Eating in the confines of Kedusha. Eating in the framework of holiness. That affects atonement. So I will say, so now we should begin to see something amazing. So I want Kedusha in my life, but yet I can't affect Kedusha on my own. Why? Because of my physicality, because of my chumrius, because my physicality often creates a barrier between myself and God. So therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, no problem, you put in your effort, you do your thing, and then what? And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'll confer additional Kedusha upon you. And then something amazing happens. When that conferred Kedusha comes about, then what occurs? Suddenly, even the physicality becomes endowed with holiness. Absolutely incredible. This is a beautiful, beautiful piece. We'll have to do it somewhat quickly. He says like this: V'sira ata hefresh sheven atar lakadosh. Rabbi say now you can begin to see. This is incredible. The distinction between tahar and kadosh, tara and kedusha, or a person who is tahar and a person who is kadosh. Wherein lies the difference between the two? Watch this. Hatar ma'asav hachormim eino el hechrechim. Shabbos said, when a person is tar, so what he's really trying to do, I'll say, get ready for this. What he's trying to do is, to whatever degree possible, he's trying to separate and distance himself from the physical. And the only physical things he'll engage in are the things he has to in order to survive. V'nimtza, Sha'al yidei yotzim misug hara shebechamrius v'nisharim torim ach lichlal kedusha labo ki ilu haya efshar biltam kvar haya yosra tov. Shabbos says, so the person who's in the state of tara, so ultimately again, he's only taking from the physical world that which he needs. He's only enjoying from the physical world that which he needs. But if you asked him, what's your ideal? What would his ideal be? To divorce himself from the physical world altogether. If I didn't need anything physical, that would be the best. I will say, watch this. Achakadosh hadavik tamid leilokav v'nafsho misalachas bein hamuskalos hamitios biavas baraviroso hine nechshav lo ki iluchu mishalich lifnei Hashem ba'aretzos hachayim odenu po ba'olam hazeh. I will say, get ready for this. The person who is kadosh knows how to make the material world part of his avodas Hashem as well. I will say, isn't this absolutely beautiful? Now, how you do this, we haven't learned yet, right? But Lamaisa, listen to this ideal. See, Kiddusha, what does Kiddusha say? Kiddusha says, I have to find a way to make everything part of my Kiddusha as Hashem. Tara says, I want to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I recognize there are certain obstacles to the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so therefore I want to go ahead and distance myself from those obstacles as much as I can. What's one of the greatest obstacles to the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Material. The material world. So therefore the person who's tar says, you know what, okay, I'm a physical being, so I can't totally divorce myself from the world of the material, so I'll take what I have to begrudgingly, but if I could, I divorce myself from it in its entirety. The person who's Kaddish also recognizes that what? There is the ability to bring everything in my life under the umbrella of Kiddusha. There's the ability to bring everything under the umbrella of Avodas Hashem. There is that possibility exists. And therefore, says Ramchal, the person who is Kaddish ultimately goes ahead and realizes, I don't have to divorce myself from the world of the material to be close to Hashem. I just have to find a way to sublimate that world of the material in my Avodas Hashem. It's so incredible. He goes on, he says, V'hine, ish kazeh, a person like this, who atzmo nechshav, this is such in Yonei Diyoma, ki mishkan, ki mikdash, u ki mizbeach, u ki ma'amar zichron levracha, vayam me'alav elokim, ha'avos hein hamerkava. Shabbos said, if you think about this is what Ramchal was saying before, what's fascinatingly unique about what happened inside of the Mishkan later on inside of the Mikdash? What's so fascinatingly unique, I will say? What occurred? Think about this just a moment. What's the bulk of activity that occurred in the Beis HaMikdash? Or again, this week's Parashiyos, the Mishnah. What's the bulk of activity? Karbanos. Karbanos. Isn't that fascinating? What are karbanos? It was like karbanos are all taking up the physical, putting it on a mizbeach, and somehow elevating the physical into the spiritual. That was the entire. It's such a fascinating idea. They always say, you would think, especially if you think about it today, right? What do we do? Right? We have a shul, Baruch Hashem. What do we do inside of a shul primarily? Good. I know this is hard for some to answer. I'm not sure, right? What is he referring to? Right? So point out. Ideally, right? What are we doing? We're davening. In fact, I will say, by the way, eating, we saw this in Smichas Chavar, right? Eating inside of a shul is halachically problematic. Okay, for learning, once I'm learning inside, it becomes a beis medrash, so I'm allowed to do certain things. But the ikar will say is tefillah. In fact, a shul, anything physical is a whole discussion within the poskim about the ability, what can you use a shul for? It's so ironic, because in the Mishkan, in the Beis HaMikdash, the entire essence of the avodah was what? Karbanos. It was eating. Why I will say? Because do you know what the primary role of a Mikdash was? The primary role of a Mikdash was ultimately, again, to get us to live a life of Kiddusha. What does it mean to live a life of Kiddusha? Kiddusha means to take the physical and to elevate it into the service of God. Tara says, distance yourself from the physical as much as you can, take what you need in order to survive, but then really go ahead and try to figure out what don't you need because it holds you back. Kiddusha says, make the physical holy. That's the entire essence of the Beis HaMikdash. You're going to take animals, which are the most mundane things that exist, and what are you going to show? That I can take an animal and I can make a kaddish. Not only that, I can take an animal and I can turn it into a vehicle of kapara. I could go and take an animal and turn it into a vehicle of atonement. That was the entire essence. Well, so let's just finish up. So we'll say, therefore, when a person becomes a kadosh, something amazing happens. When a person is a kadosh, the food that he eats, it becomes like a carbon offered up on top of holy fires. Ad shahaya kol minam misparch b'chol ha'olam k'ma'amarim zchron levracha medrash. Kinamachol. Shabbos says so again. Well, I'm not getting it because of time. Just quickly, see, he's explaining over here when a person is a kadosh, Every single thing that they do, they're able to bring under the umbrella of Kiddusha. So when a person is Kadosh, the food that he eats, the drink that he drinks, he elevates. This is incredible. See, when a person is Kadosh, when a person has reached the level of Kiddusha, what he's able to do is to take the mundane activities of life and endow them with Kiddusha. An act of eating can become Kadosh. An act of drinking can become Kadosh. You fill in the blank with the physical material thing, and a person who has reached the level of Kiddusha has the ability to infuse that activity with Kiddusha. As if the very food and the very drink have actually been offered up on top of the Mizbeach itself. They will say a dramatically beautiful and incredible idea. So we'll say we'll stop over here for today, but just now we're caught up. But we'll say, but just understand what Ramchal is describing over here. First of all, a very fascinating distinction between Kiddusha and Tara. Right? Tara, which again, in English these words don't translate well, but Tara, which we learned about again, the quest for purity. Purity often comes as a result of identifying, okay, ideally, if I didn't have to use the material world, I wouldn't use it. But I'm a material being, so therefore I have to. I'll use what I have to begrudgingly and leave the rest behind. That's Tara. Kiddusha, which also again Ramchal defines as a synergistic partnership between man and God. Man cannot accomplish Kiddusha on his own. Now, remember again, what's the irony? Why can't man accomplish Kiddusha on his own? Why not? Why not? Because of his physicality. Incredible. So what does he do? He puts in his effort, and where man's effort ends, he says, okay, I got you the rest of the way. And then something amazing happens. With that conferred Kiddusha, suddenly what is man able to do? This is the irony. What is man able to do? He's able to infuse holiness into what? Into everything, including the material. So that which held me back, prevented me from acquiring complete Kiddusha, once I put in my effort to confer Kiddusha, allows me to infuse Kiddusha even into the material. To the point, ultimately, again, that the person who is Kadosh is able to go ahead and raise up even his act of eating, his act of drinking, any physical act into a Maaseh Kiddusha. The Raya, the proof to this, the Beis HaMikdash. This is what happened at Beis HaMikdash. Even the base, the material, the physical was all elevated to a heightened level of Kiddusha. So we'll stop over for today. How one does this, of course, in Meretz Hashem, we still have to see. What a beautiful, beautiful way to start the We'll say Shkoyach.